I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Jonny Smith.
And this is On the Other Side of Things, the Smith & Sniff spin-off in which we answer your questions. Here we are again on a Friday, a little half-hour answering of the questions. I'm going to start with a very minimalist, it's not even a question really, but we're going to treat it as
Well,
such.
why are you allowing it in? Surely the portcullis should come down.
No, you'll understand.
Oh, okay.
It's from Sam. Sam, his email is entitled Gen 1 IS200 Gauge Cluster. And the body of his email simply says, "None is better. Fight me. Love, Sam."
Do you know,
None is better.
I remember
What a
that.
claim.
I remember that car when it was launched, and you and I will have both been in the game when that car came out. And it's a very satisfying car to drive. I'd love to drive one again now.
That's funny because I was thinking the same thing. I saw one and I looked at it and I thought, and it was a IS200 manual.
Oh.
And I thought, I bet that's really nice now.
I bet it's really
and
nice.
Crisp. But it had a lovely gear change. It got a bit of stick at the time because it wasn't super fast. Like that 2-litre straight six wasn't absolutely bulging with torque. But
it was
a
creamy.
2-litre. I mean, what do you expect? Yeah, it was really smooth.
Yeah.
I seem to remember it revved well.
In the past, we've talked about witness protection cars. I think that might be my new favourite witness protection spec car. No one would really notice it, but it would be a satisfying drive and, of course, extremely reliable.
I think it would have to be very tidy. Because, in fact, the one I saw that prompted me to think, ooh, I bet that's still quite nice to drive, was a little bit... Well, it had a little bit of sort of... It was almost algal on the weather strips at the bottom of the side windows. I think if you had a really immaculate one, which would be... I mean, I bet you could find a lovely deceased spec one of those because they may have been drawn an older audience as well.
It would have been perfect Spec D. Perfect.
But there were two things that car did design-wise that were quite influential. One was the gauge cluster, because I think it made people go, oh, gauges can be quite interesting and novel and almost sort of like a wristwatch. And the rear lights. I mean, ever since people have said, they use the words Lexus lights when they mean usually aftermarket clear lamps.
That's right. So it was a clear rear cluster with the coloured innards set into it, almost in a jewelled way. And yeah, you were right. That coined the whole Lexus rear clusters is in the Max Power circles. That was one of the instant mods you would make to your Saxo or 106 or all those kinds of cars. You'd have the replica IS200 rear clusters and all that. It's amazing, isn't it? It really did. That car's highly influential when you think about it, yet it's not talked about.
So, but to treat Sam's rather punchy message as a question, Gen 1 IS200 gauge cluster, none is better. Is that true?
Well, that's throwing the question back to the audience, my friend, which is what you're supposed to do with this sort of podcast, isn't it?
I'm going to say it was certainly none is better at that time, bringing something new and interesting to the world.
So is that ultimate 90s gauge cluster? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Possibly. Because it was a late 90s car, I think, the IS200.
Yes, it was. But best gauge cluster ever? Oh, I mean...
There's a Citroen. Citroen's a high contender for that.
Well, I think for crisp simplicity, 90s BMWs and Volvos are strong.
Yeah.
Really good look on those. And certain Porsches, again, very simple, crisp graphics and everything. And all that.
I sat in an old Mercedes SL recently and I forgot how beautiful the dash is. The dash is almost the best looking bit of the car, and the whole car's good looking.
Yeah.
Well, let's open it to the audience, shall we?
I think we should, actually, because this is one of those ones, but I liked the minimalism of Sam's message, and I thought it sort of raised a question, even though he didn't directly phrase it as one. So we'll come back to that. But hello@smithandsniff.com if you have an opinion about this.
I think this is a question that you might be able to immediately answer, and I think I'm too thick to answer it, or too forgetful, or both. This is a letter from Paul Zwicky Ross. Hello, USSGs, sweet guys. No amusing anecdotes about Sade's RX-8, piss vistas, or phantom bikers buzzing past my house at dawn, but just a simple game that occurred to me yesterday. A recently uncorked genie will gift you any car with the proviso that its name can be written on the face of a digital watch in 12-hour mode. What? What, sirs, do you do? Speaking as a child of the 1990s, I would be stopping my clock at either 1 minute to 10 or 5 minutes to 4.
1 minute to 10. Oh,
but I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Keep up the great work, Paul. This is a big question.
1 minute to 10 is a personal favourite of mine as well.
Okay, so
Porsche 959 is one of my all-time favourite cars. So I was just absolutely.
Well, we both had
all over that.
We both had trouser moments when we were in America at the old Lens Spolts, because we saw. Did we see 9 of them in one day?
Yes, I think it was.
Which is probably the most 959s I'm ever going to see in a day.
It's nearly 5% of all made, so it's pretty extraordinary. What was the other car that he said, or the other time?
He said, I would be stopping my clock at either 1 minute to 10 or 5 minutes to 4.
Okay, 355, right.
So 355 for
Good.
Ferrari.
Yeah, okay. So... But we just got to choose one car. I mean, that's he's kind of answered it for me, because 959. But if not, you actually got quite a lot of choice.
You have, really. You have actually.
Lots of lovely Peugeots. I might have, if I was feeling luxurious, I might have 5/6 with a velour interior.
What a lovely, 205 is too obvious, but that ex-Rowan Atkinson 205 that was lovely, that sold the other week.
Yeah.
For 20 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I didn't think was silly for, ex-helmsman Mr. Bean.
Yeah. I would also maybe give some time of day to the T5R version of the 10 to 9.
Oh, okay. That's nice. 850. Yeah, I like that. Oh, this game has cracked off quicker than I realised.
Because that's the thing, you're mentally spooling through and going, there's bloody loads of cars, because, I mean,
do you know what I do? I'm going to go for 1 minute past 9. Yeah, and it's actually a prototype 911, and it's
the prototype time for 11 minutes past 9.
Yeah, and I'm going to steal it from Alois Ruff. He's just going to wake up one morning and just be, do you know what? I'm an older guy. I've had this car since I was 16. I don't give a shit about it anymore. You can have it. But you have to come to Germany and get it and have lunch with me. And I'm like, I'm already there, Mr. Ruff. And I'd have a great lunch with him. We'd tool around. He'd show me the ropes and he'd say, look after it. Don't be a dick, in the words of Caffeine and Machine. And I'd drive it all the way home. That would be that. You're all right there. You misfired.
Yeah, sorry. I am. I'm definitely something is not right with my timing. Sorry. It's just the idea that Caffeine and Machine's actual sort of corporate slogan is "Don't be a dick," which I suppose it sort of is, isn't it? I mean, they do write it on things, and it's perfectly.
Stop people from driving away from their premises like a flute.
Like an absolute sleeve.
Yes.
Okay. I have a message here from a listener called Nathaniel. He says, hello, USSGs. I've recently been browsing the web for a potential project car to mess about with for fun. I thought I'd ask you flutes for some suggestions.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, anyway, it is, isn't it? But here we are. He says, I've got a 2K budget, prefer it to be a hatchback. I want rust to be as little a problem as possible. Would love to hear your ideas on this. Well,
2K, and he wants a hatchback. Did he say a hot hatch or just a hatch?
Well, he says prefer it to be a hatch. And so, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because you hear sort of project car fun, blah, you assume hot hatchback. but maybe not.
I've immediately thought of one.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be a hot hatch, but there was a hot hatch derivative, and you could easily modify yours taking parts from that. I was looking at one the other day, and I realised how much I dig it, especially when they are lowered on decent suspension. A Peugeot 309.
Oh, I love a 3.
Well, I thought $2,000 would get you a non-GTI 309. They're galvanised, which means they rot a lot less than non-Golf cars.
Yeah.
And you could, if you wanted to, build a bit of a track-attacker or or even a track-attacker or even a stealthy helmsman machine that didn't have any GTI badging, of course. And I think it could be quite a satisfying thing and not cost you much money. What do you reckon, Rich?
It's an interesting thought. I just had a little look on Car and Classic, and there are no normal 309s. There are only 3 GTIs, and they're all quite punchy money. The cheapest is $8,000.
Oh, shiver me.
But hang on a sec. On that note, obviously everyone's going a bit gaga for 205 GTIs, but what about a non-GTI? See, look, here we go. There's a very lovely looking 205, 1991. It's a 1.1 petrol, 5-speed manual. And it's up for £1,600, and it looks really tidy.
I like the sound of that.
Well, it looks mega. It's on some nice Steelies. I don't think those are the factory ones because it's a GL, but those look like they're the Steelies off like an XS or something. But anyway, it's lovely. It's got a nice simple carb engine, and it's the 5-door. It's in white. It's the facelift one. I bet that's lovely to drive.
I bet it's really good to drive. We are gravitating towards the French hatch with a lot of stuff, but
now if we want something hot, and also if Nathaniel is looking for a project, I've just checked, and you can just about get into a first-gen Suzuki Swift Sport for £2,000.
Oh, I love those.
I know. I had one as a long-termer, and it was bloody great. And it's so there's a Cat C one here on Auto Trader for £2,050, but there's a one that seems to be not in any kind of insurance category for £2,195. Fully serviced, new brakes, 120,000 miles. It's a private seller. It's black. It looks ace.
Oh, just go and get it.
That might be where my money would go. The only thing that doesn't work for me is it has massive stickers on the C pillar that say Swift Spouts, but you could probably get those off. The rest of it looks really tidy.
How much is a Suzuki Anus Sport these days? Because I like those.
I like
boxy
those
things.
I think your biggest challenge might be finding one. I mean, you see them around. There's one that lives near me, actually, but hang on, I'm going to have a little look.
You'd have to. Would we have to call? We've got a special burner phone for Sir Ranulph Fiennes, and it's a phone with just one button.
Oh right, yes, that's all it needs.
In fact, it's also known as a CB radio. Yeah.
Before we fully leave small French hatchbacks, though. Oh look, you see, I was going to say. Oh, now, hey, hang on. I was going to say Citroen AX.
Yeah. And
here on Car and Classic is quite an early, it's an 87 Citroen AX 11 TRE. So that's supposed to have the 1.1 litre TU engine in it. But no, this one is a sleeper. It's got an AX GT engine in it, but it looks absolutely standard. It's even got the original trims on it. Bloody hell, this is brilliant.
That sounds great. You've mentally bought it, haven't you?
Oh my
already?
Christ! It's absolutely tidy, but it looks tidy, base model tidy, or near mid-range tidy because it's got wheel trims. But it's
is that Festival of the Unexceptional Contender?
Well, the trouble is that the owner has made it exceptional by putting this tuned AX GT engine in it. So they reckon it's good for around 105 to 110 horsepower. And it weighs under 700 kilos. But otherwise it's completely standard.
They are so light.
Flipping heck. Now, it's a little out of budget. It's £2,495. But if Nathaniel can find 495 quid down the back of the sofa, this looks like it would be hilarious.
I can't better that, apart from saying if you've watched the most recent Late Break show, we did a barn find pair of 106 rallies, Peugeot 106 rallies. You can't buy a rally for 2k, but you can buy a normal 106. And the aftermarket parts for those, because of the GTI and the rally and the XSI, you can make them play really nicely. We've dwelt on this question far too long.
We do. Okay, do you have another one?
Dewey. Of course I have. Of
course, mate.
Good day. This is from Simon Coley. Good day, you couple of SSGs. I recently had a funny moment with my youngest daughter. We were playing a board game in which you had a notable character of the past, and one of which was Cleopatra. However, due to my daughter being 5, she thought she was called Cleopatrick, which, apart from giving us all a giggle, put me in the mind of an Irish-French hot hatch enthusiast. It also made me think how many folk I have in my contacts list in my phone that are car-related that you don't really know. For example, in my contacts book, I have MX-5 Mick. Archie Jump Leads. Archie Jump Leads.
That sounds like a gangster, though, who strangles people with a set of jump leads. Don't mess with him. Mick the Knife and Archie Jump Leads.
Archie the Jump Lead. Yeah, that's right. He's got Angus Electrics. I quite like that. It's like me with non-stop talking John. He's got Angus Electrics, Davy Tyres. I like that. Davy Tyres. Don't mess with Davy Tyres. He'll come and tread on you.
Fastest wheelman in the county.
He will fucking tread on you. And then you've got Wooly 130i. Brilliant.
It's good to know for sure that Wooly is fuel injected.
I absolutely do have this. Simon Coley, I do have this. He's put, as well as knowing quite a few people only by the car they drive and possibly a first name. Do you guys have anybody like this? Thanks for the great cast, which lighten up a Monday and set up a Friday. CMTMB. I do. I do have
over
this.
Archie Jump Leads. I don't what?
It's weird, isn't it? It's so weird. I do have people like this. I'm just about to go into. I'm going into my contacts book, and I thought, what's the best way to do this? I don't really know, because I mean, I'm
pretty sure that I've got.
I've got Recovery Bev. I've got Detailing Aaron. These are just the
Recovery Bev.
Yeah. He's a guy called Bev that used to do lots of recovery, and he's a really good guy. In fact, he used to. I haven't seen him in a long time. Bev used to hill climb a Reliant Scimitar that was rapid AF.
Now I've just found Phil Landrover here.
Oh, Phil Landrover, yeah, you know him.
And I've got Aaron Recovery as well.
There you go. You got a recovery guy.
I've got a recovery too.
I've got an Adrian Formula E here. This is good. I've got a guy called Alan the Honda Hoarding Talker.
Oh my god.
I'm just going to press that. Yeah, Alan Honda Hoarder Talker. Brilliant.
Wow.
I've got lots of Allans. I've got another Alan that's CNC machining.
Oh.
Obviously for some car parts.
I've just looked. I don't have any Allans in my phone.
I've got loads of Allans.
Have you?
Yeah, loads. I mean, it's no boast, is it? What sort of a tall boast about that?
I have got, as I was just sort of scrolling down, I have got lots of people who I have simply no idea who they are.
I've got Sarah Ducati. Yeah, she's in there. Oh, this is quite an addictive game. I like this game.
Well, I suppose we invite people who have particularly unusual name/car combinations in their phones to get in touch. hello@smithandsniff.com. You'll be doing well, I think, to beat Archie Jump Leads, although I have to ask Simon to perhaps flesh that one out, because like everything else seems fairly self-explanatory, but why someone would get jump leads put after their name.
I think that he was stranded one day and a guy called Archie came to the rescue.
Okay.
And they exchanged numbers because he's probably a nice guy, and he thought, do you know what? I'm going to send him like a bit of cash, or I'm going to send him a gift voucher or something.
Right, I'll do another question.
Who knows?
This one's from a listener called Richard Colborne. He says, I was wondering, are car journalists ever tempted to go easy on a car and give it a slightly more generous review than they otherwise would because they're worried about repercussions as a result? For example, from the manufacturer. It must be quite a strange dynamic, and I would understand one worrying that they may never hear from Ferrari again if they said their latest creation was absolute dog pile. This question was inspired by a recent episode of my second favourite podcast, The Newsagents, in which Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall discussed the potential strings attached to freebies and hospitality between politicians and journalists, and Richard's faint praise of the new Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT, describing it as a dancing bear. So there's a good question. Well, first of all, because I say sort of freebies in inverted commas, I suppose, yes, a press car lent typically for a week is the usual routine. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a freebie in as much as you're getting a free car. Usually it comes with a full tank of fuel or a full, the nearest damn it, full charged battery. So yeah, you could call it a freebie, but it falls into that strange category where it's also there for your job if you're supposed to be reviewing it. Yeah, you're not just sort of there for shiz giggles. So you've got to go out and actually find out what it's like, and then go home and write about it or talk about it or whatever it is that you're going to do for your review. So it's not the sort of full freebie the way that like you might go and hear, I don't know, an album playback or something like that as a music journalist, and then they give you, I don't know, back in the 90s, a Scion organizer or something like that. But, obviously at the same time...
That's very specific, Rich.
Yeah, I know.
Very,
that used to happen.
Specific.
See, that's the thing. Separate to that, there did used to be some fairly lavish freebies on car launches back in the day. And I think famously, one time a bunch of journalists got flown to South Korea for one of the manufacturers based there, and I think everybody got given a laptop. And this was in the 90s when, apart from the fact that laptops were sort of 9 inches thick, they were also still quite a novelty. Not everyone had one. And so it was a pretty lavish present to be given as a, inverted commas, thank you for coming all the way to South Korea to look at our factory. But that doesn't really go on anymore, does it? It's all much more above board now.
No, I think there's lots of things going on here. I'll try and wrap them up succinctly. You've got a newer breed of influencer / content maker on digital platforms who reviews cars in a totally different way to a traditional journalist, and not just reviewing cars, I suppose, talking about car experiences and POV, walking into dealerships and that sort of thing. So the media has changed, coupled with the fact that old school magazine journalists in car mags, the Americans especially, used to be very kind on home market cars, if you remember, because they didn't want to disrupt the advertising revenue for said magazines. So if Buick released a new Buick that was a bit cack, they would be very mild on its negatives, because they genuinely didn't want to upset the gravy boat. And the
gravy boat.
Yeah, upset the gravy boat. Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And all that. So the way I do it, I mean, because you can go quite hard, you can go quite Clarkson on these things. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I used to do it on fifth gear. I'd sometimes wake up and be in a specific mood where I really wanted to tear the car a new one for one aspect that I really disliked about it. But on the other hand, I think it's always about balance when you're trying to review something, because every car has a positive. There are positives to every car, and new cars have got so good in many ways. But you're always trying to balance out about, ultimately it comes down to, this is good, but does it cost too much? Or this is good, but it is not as good as all the other cars it competes with. I tried to balance a verdict, really.
But yeah, to answer Richard's question about if you're tempted to go easier on a car because you're worried about repercussions. I would say the car industry is quite grown up, and if you criticise something, as long as you can defend it as a genuine criticism, as a piece of consumer journalism, you're warning people about this aspect of a car in case they might be thinking of getting one, then you're usually fine. Quite honestly, an awful lot of PRs in the industry are ex-journalists. They know the difference between a good and a bad car.
Yeah.
And they probably know if their company is peddling something that's a bit cack, they probably know as well as you do, but they can't say so. So they have to just focus on the positives. And so as a result, they're quite understanding. If you say, look, this isn't good enough and this isn't good enough, and you say it in a constructive way and you mean it sincerely, you're not going to get pulled up on it and you're not going to get blacklisted. But the only exceptions do tend to be, I mean, Richard mentioned Ferrari. Ferrari are classically well known for having a bit of a tantrum if you dare to criticise them. But equally, they're not actually as bad as they used to be, I think. And also, they suffer. They have the luxury of making, as it turns out these days, really, really good cars, mostly. So they don't get as criticised. And the things they do get flack for, like putting the indicator buttons on the wheel and stuff, they just seem to brush off because they're still doing it. I mean, it must be different if you're working for, I don't know, a smaller magazine or something, but they don't really exist anymore, where you're kind of going, oh, shit, if the ads get pulled, we're in trouble. But I think those days are long gone. But at the same time, you brought up the influencers. It's there's a couple of people I follow on the socials that I sort of think of as like cosplay car journalists, because they clearly have a good pipeline of press cars, and I watch their little bits and go on, be critical. Go on, be critical. No criticism whatsoever.
No.
But from a car company's point of view, are you going to lend a car as a priority to some old fucker like me who might start bitching about how you can't find the heated rear window control, or some bright-eyed young pup who's just going to say that everything's brilliant like that bloke in the Fast Show because they're just delighted to be in the game? I'd go with the second one, get the positive coverage, get the car out there on a platform appealing to a new audience. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So when people slag off influencers because they're crashing the party, well, fair play to them.
And here I am kind of trying to straddle both. And I think Honda haven't talked to me since I immensely disliked their electric car, which has a name that I've actually forgotten.
Yeah, because no one can remember. Is it called the Anyone or something?
Oh, ENY1. Because it's rubbish and it's not good enough, and that comes from somebody who's actually passionate about Hondas, and that's why that's what I said in the verdict. And
I think that's fair enough. I thought that review you did was absolutely balanced and honest, but it's just not a very good car, and that's something that there's a great story about. Autocar magazine gave an absolute kicking to the Citroen DS5, was it, when that came out? It had that hybrid version, which was
it diesel hybrid? Was it the first diesel hybrid?
Yes, I think it was. It gave an incredible sense of what it must be like to drive the very first prototype of something. It was so far from being finished. It was extraordinary. It was a dreadful car, and it rode badly, and the powertrain was awful. And an Autocar rightly pointed these things out. And somebody from Citroen arrived at their office to tell them why they were wrong. And to his credit, the editor at the time told them to fuck off out of his buildings.
Really?
So, if Richard's wondering if everything is all a bit cosy between car makers and the press, the answer is no, not all the time, or even much of the time.
No, I think it's there are a lot of people out there that try and, like you say everything's brilliant, but in a world of immense fake news and stuff like that, and people needing and should be disclosing whether they're being paid by a manufacturer and all that stuff, you just have to really think carefully about the content you watch, and is this real opinion or is this paid opinion? And this comes from someone that makes content, and I do get sponsored, but I do disclose that every time.
And on that thought for the day, we should bring this to a close. But thank you for your questions. If you've got something you'd like to ask us, hello@smithandsniff.com. We'll do this again next Friday. But before that, main show on Monday. Hope to see you then. Goodbye.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, mate. Bye.